Okay.
My mute is muted, okay.
All right. What is anything blocking your slide? I see a box in front of it. There we go. Okay. All right. Sorry about this, everybody.
That's me because I'm used to Zoom and haven't presented on Teams very often. So.
And we just got Teams very recently as well, so that's why I'm a little unfamiliar. But anyway, we'll start. So, and thank you, Sue, for all your help. So, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. My name's Eric Basta, Business Development Manager for NH-MEP, New Hampshire Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Thank you for attending today's webinar, Embedding Sustainability in All Aspects of Your Business. The session is being recorded and will be made available at some point after the webinar. For those of you not familiar with NH-MEP, NH-MEP belongs to the National MEP system under the Department of Commerce and NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. There's an MEP center in all 50 states and Puerto Rico. Our mission is to help manufacturers improve their productivity, compete globally, and keep jobs in the state. So let's get right into it. Many small and medium-sized manufacturers in New Hampshire may not know how to create a sustainability strategy for their business. Alternatively, others are ready to dive deeper into sustainability practices, but they may not have the staff or resources to make it happen. This webinar will provide examples for manufacturers to create opportunities in effective environmental and social strategies and discuss action plans. Now let me introduce you to our presenter, Sue Kaplan. Sue is founder of Sustainable Futures Consulting. Her firm advises business leaders to integrate environmental strategies, communicate their sustainability impact, and amplify their bottom line. She focuses on medium-sized businesses that are seeking progress on sustainability, climate action, clean energy, and societal challenges. Her expertise in sustainability weaves people, nature, and inspiration together. Joining Sue will be Shaye Hardner, Sustainability Manager at Worthen Industries in Nashua, and Robin Tindall, Environmental Stewardship Director at Hypertherm in Hanover. So now let's hear from Sue Kaplan.
Thank you so very much, and I appreciate the time that I've wasted. I am just want to move this. There we go. Want to give you a sense of myself as well as the topic today. So thank you so much, Eric, and I also appreciate Kara Tracy and Tony Fernandez from the New Hampshire Manufacturing Extension Partnerships. I'm delighted to share my experience, skills, and passion for weaving people, nature, and inspiration together. I'm hosting this webinar as a sustainability expert who has a strong respect for the manufacturing industry. As decades ago, I was a pioneer in corporate social and environmental responsibility at Polaroid Corporation, which was a global manufacturing giant. And I learned much of what I am working on these days: supply chains, community engagement, employee ownership, profitability, and a rigorous program to reduce waste, change packaging, working with large and small businesses to pilot a return policy for our materials. So I work in this field because my mother taught me to steward the land, and my father taught me to learn, my dad and my father taught me to learn and engage in my purpose. So I'm hoping that we will have a great conversation, but mostly bringing these two experts in the team. Shaye, can you share a bit about you and why you do what you do? And then Robin, you can do the same thing. That would be terrific.
My name is Shaye Hardner. I'm the sustainability manager at Worthen Industries. We are a family-owned manufacturer of specialty adhesives and coatings, extruded films, and flexible coated substrates, which I know is a bit of a mouthful. We have 2 facilities located in Nashua, New Hampshire, and then we have 3 others in other locations in the US. I got involved with sustainability basically because I just believe that our planet requires that we operate more sustainability in order to survive. And with more and more people, we're not really going to be consuming less. And so I think that's important that we figure out how to produce what we need using fewer resources and in a more sustainable fashion. So that's sort of what drew me to sustainability. And then in terms of at Worthen, just a little bit of what I do for Worthen, I support all of our plants and our business units on their various sustainability related projects. We all have each plant and each business unit has what we call just one thing projects, although they really have morphed into 3 or 4 different things depending on the group that's working on them. And so it's sort of my job to help make sure that we're all moving forward on all of those projects and working towards the sustainability goals that we have established as a corporation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Tindall. I'm the Environmental Stewardship Director at Hypertherm. We're located primarily in Lebanon and Hanover in terms of our U.S. operations, and we sell throughout the world. And what we sell is industrial cutting equipment. So our plasma generates a superheated gas beam hotter than the surface of the sun, which can cut through 6 inches of steel. We also make water jet equipment. 60,000 PSI water can cut through a foot of concrete. And then we make all software that goes along with that. And so why sustainability for me specifically? I think it's pretty rational that businesses cannot thrive in societies that fail. And climate change and environmental issues could cause our societies to fail. And so as businesses, we have a responsibility. Luckily, a lot of the things that I work on, you don't even necessarily need to make the case about the planet, because there is a big case to be made for reducing your expenses, increasing your profits by aligning with sustainability causes. And lean manufacturing has long been part of our culture at Hypertherm, as well as just, digging deep for the relentless pursuit of waste, cost savings, and sustainability problems are huge and system-wide. And as people in manufacturing, you're probably all used to the fact that when you're working with such a big system, you can't do anything alone, right? So sustainability projects allow you to leverage that strength that you probably already have for solving big problems and collaborating and working as a team. Also, personally, I would say I get bored easily, but you never are going to get bored when you're working on sustainability issues. There's always something new and there's always more to do. And so that just kind of makes it generally fun and interesting on a daily basis.
That's such a great comment, Robin. I really appreciate that. You all see the agenda. We are not doing a deep dive in each of these topics. I will share, like some definitions about sustainability, but Shaye and Robin have shared some of that as well. And then we'll talk about stakeholders, energy efficiency, renewable energy, waste, circularity, supply chains and customers, and reporting and accounting. So there's a lot, but again, we're not doing a deep dive. We're really trying to get a sense, provide opportunities that really can benefit for your businesses. So there are so many different definitions. One of the things that I think first is around the 7th generation, which is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. And the University of New Hampshire, which is really one of the most sustainable universities in the U.S., defines sustainability as a collective commitment to human dignity for all people and ecological integrity in all places. I tend to think about sustainability as that touches every aspect of our lives, and that it can be integrated in everything we do. And for businesses and nonprofit organizations, you can enhance efficiency, strengthen your culture, and bolster your reputation. And the components of sustainability, I would say these are like 6 buckets: energy and climate, environment, workplace, community, governance, and transparency, and diversity and inclusion. The components, this is basically the buckets that New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility use, and it's mostly aligned with B impact assessments and other different ways of engaging with sustainability. I include these 2 pictures because, as we know, in New Hampshire and around the globe, there's a lot of water, a lot of drought, and we are seeing, the changes in our maple trees, monarch butterflies, and the ecosystem of the winter that our economy needs is changing as well. The young people below were all do sustainability fellowships at UNH who are working with businesses and nonprofits and municipalities. I feel very privileged to have taught at UNH in sustainability, and I always like to see the young people to remind myself what the future needs to be. So I'm going to go very quickly about, most of you are very clear about shareholders and stakeholders. Shareholders really have always been the most, that was the only stakeholder. And the employees, the environment, customers, suppliers, the community wasn't necessarily a really important piece. But I would say that stakeholders are key to sustainability, so that you're really wrapping around every type of engagement in stakeholders. So I am going then to ask Shaye to talk a bit about energy efficiency and renewable energy.
So Worthen has been interested in renewable energy for a long time, since before I started here. I've been here for about almost 8 years. And our previous president, David Worthen, was a big advocate for renewable energy and solar. And so we actually put our first solar rooftop array on our facility down in Massachusetts. It's a relatively small array. Massachusetts is particularly favorable in terms of various incentives that they have for installing solar. So in 2016, that's when we installed our first solar array. And then the following year, put this 1 megawatt array on top of our facility in Nashua, which until just a couple years ago was the largest rooftop array in the state. We were finally surpassed, which is good news, really. But and we've continued to install additional arrays. We just put this 715 kilowatt array on our facility out in Michigan last year, and we're currently installing one on our facility in Richmond, Virginia, and hope to have that up and running by the end of the year. Solar, so as I mentioned, Worthen's it's a family-owned business, so we are able to take a longer view maybe than some companies that have shareholders that are asking for faster returns. Installing in solar does, if you're actually going to build your own system, it does have a longer payback period. So I think our facility, the one in Massachusetts, paid back pretty quickly in about 5 years. Nashua took probably closer to 10. We're hoping that the Grand Rapids and Richmond are more in the 7-year range. It varies a lot by state due to the incentives, due to how much you can sell your renewable energy credits for and things like that. But it is, you know, Worthen felt like it was a good investment. At once you reach payback, then of course, you know, you're getting your electricity basically for the cost of maintaining your system. So the arrays provide between 30 and 80% of each facility's annual electricity usage. So we've maximized the arrays to the extent that we have roof space for, and sort of that's where it came out. So 30 to 80% of each facility's needs, which is pretty great. And then we've also tried to take advantage of other opportunities. For example, in Grand Rapids, we also have joined our utilities, they call it the Business Renewable Energy Program, not very creative. And what that does is we basically signed an agreement that we are going to pay a fee, a subscription fee for every kilowatt hour that we purchase from the grid, because the array is not providing all of our electricity there. We agree to pay a subscription fee. And by signing on to this agreement, basically, we are helping to support the development of a new solar supply. So they're building a new solar facility, and a bunch of facilities agree that they're going to pay the subscription fee, and that basically funds the development of the source. And then in exchange for the subscription fee, when the facility sells the electricity, we will get a credit. And after about 5 or 6 years, we expect that the price of electricity will make it so that that credit surpasses the set fixed subscription fee that we're paying. And so again, eventually it'll hit a point at which we've paid back, or where we're actually going to be hopefully making some money on that. So we really feel that investing in renewable energy, we try not to do offsets. We want to do things where we're actually having some impact on additionality, where we're helping to create new sources of renewable energy. And so that's why we've chosen to invest in installing our own solar and projects where we're actually helping the development of other new solar energy sources. So that has been something that just it's been a big focus. And as I mentioned, being a family-owned business, we are able to take a little bit longer view than some public companies are able to.
And Shaye, most of the work that Worthen has done did not include the IRA. Now I've just forgotten the acronym. Robin, you know it is
Inflation reduction.
Thank you. So you did that without that benefit at this time. Does it change anything going forward for you?
I don't think it really changes anything going forward for us, because once we finish the array on our Richmond facility this year, I think we're sort of tapped out of rooftop space. We'll only have one facility that doesn't have solar on it, and that roof is just not, both the location of the roof and the condition of the roof make it not suitable for solar. So we'll be maxed out there. So yeah, we weren't really able to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act. We did, we are in some of the areas able to sell renewable energy credits that help with the investment. The price for credits varies significantly. In Massachusetts, our array is significantly smaller and generates significantly more money in credits than our Nashua array does, even though Nashua is a much bigger array, just based on the markets in those two states. And then we're also able to get some money from doing things like participating in peak demand programs. So your utility or the grids might offer some sort of financial incentive for having solar, knowing that in times of peak demand, you're going to be generating power and therefore lessening your own demand that you're pulling from the grid. So things like that can help offset the cost of the system.
Great. Thank you, Shaye. One thing, if anyone does have questions, and you can type them in the chat and potentially towards the end, answer some of those questions. So renewable energy efficiency is, that is not where I wanted to go. So renewable energy efficiency, very important for sustainability, and waste is very important to understand, and also the circular economy. There are two different pieces, and thankfully Robin Tindall has some terrific examples for both of those topics.
Sure. So back in 2010, which is basically when we began our environmental journey, we had a set of pretty aggressive goals. And one of them was to become zero waste. At the time that we set that goal, it was actually before I got here, we had no idea how we were going to get there, but we believed in setting things really aggressively so that we had to dig deep in order to reach them. So zero waste goal, according to some kind of standard setting bodies, could be less than 10% to landfill, less than 1% to landfill is what we chose, which we did achieve in January of 2021. It was our 2020 goal. And so, in 2010, when we set this and working on it throughout the decade, one of the main things, and actually it's easier when you're in manufacturing, is that you really can see your waste. Particularly if you've been involved with lean manufacturing, you've been looking for the lean wastes for a long time, and now you're looking for actual material waste. And so that's really the first thing to do, is to audit your system and your different waste streams. And you can do that in manufacturing just by walking around and seeing where things pile up. Then there's really more rigorous waste audits where you can actually stop everything that's going to the landfill for 24 hours or an entire week and actually dig through it and see what's in there. You will learn a lot, and it's definitely type 2 fun. It's not fun at the time, but you have good stories to tell afterwards. And as I said, learning is the key point. And so the example that I have really didn't involve that kind of more elbows deep waste audit, but it just involved walking around. And what we saw walking around was piles and piles of corrugated cardboard, right? We get supplies in from our vendors and suppliers in cardboard boxes. They come in the loading docks. We have people break those boxes down, empty what's out onto shelves or onto the assembly line, break the boxes down and send them back out the door. The life of that box in our facility might be 10 minutes, which you can tell right there. Well, that's pretty wasteful because that's a short life period. You can also see it piled up and see the space that it wastes. And so we measured those things. We're really into having metrics and making measurements. We measured how much space was simply taken up by piles of cardboard ready to go out the door. And then we realized, well, people's time is pretty valuable, and we have skilled associates who are stopping what they're doing on our assembly line to unload boxes and then to take their box cutters out and break down boxes. So we did a time study. And extrapolating from that time study that we did in one area, we learned that out of about 1,200 people at that time of full-time employees, we had an equivalent of 10 people, 10 FTEs, emptying boxes and crushing them and getting them out of the way, right? What a waste of our people's skills, right? And that's one of those 7 lean wastes, is the waste of human potential. And so that really helped build our case, along with safety. At the time, people were using actual razor blades instead of box cutters. And so one of our number one injuries was cuts to the hand. So by working with some of our local and regional vendors to move towards reusable packaging, we saved our associates time, we saved safety incidents, we saved space, and we just reduced that material, which of course it was corrugated, it was being recycled, but we saved on that waste stream. In terms of a circularity example, that's a little bit trickier, kind of working within an entire system to get something maybe that's coming in your door and then going out your door to go away. We all know there is no such thing as a way to get that back, that material back into circulation. So that's more complicated. We have now our first product return where a used product is coming back to us from our customers. And again, when you start looking at these problems with the environmental lens, you often start solving other problems, right? Just like with the waste, we solved a safety problem and a waste of time problem. We solved a customer connection problem. We sell through distributors and retail and OEMs. Having a product returned to us creates a direct connection with our customer that we didn't have before. Also, it increases our control of those raw materials, right? So we have some really expensive heat-resistant plastics. We have a lot of metals, and when that product comes back to us, we really regain control of that resource. So it just gives us a little bit more power. And we can see our product at the end of life, which gives us a real insight into what is happening with it, what our customers are actually doing to it, how the wear and tear process works in real life, which of course we try to simulate in our reliability and robustness labs, but the real thing is really interesting for us to see afterwards. So I'll stop there. Those are 2 examples of waste reduction and circular products.
Thanks, Robin. It's always, I love examples and case studies and whatnot, because it provides real opportunities for other companies, but also it is concrete. So I really appreciate that. I remember that you said, so Worthen Industries is privately owned and family owned, I think, right, Shaye? And Robin, your Hypertherm business is quite different as well, which is, it's an employee-owned company. Robin, I remember that you said a couple of days ago that sustainability is included in the mission statement. Is that correct? And can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have what you might have heard of as a triple bottom line mission, and the triple bottom line is often summarized as people, planet, and profits. And so our mission states that we make the world's leading industrial cutting equipment. That's how we make our profits, and that we want to serve our associates and communities, develop our associates, that's the people. And then the planet is reducing the environmental impact of everything that we do and being stewards of the environment. And so we like to say that when you walk through our door, your values as an employee owner are Hypertherm's values, and that those values are right there embedded in our triple bottom line mission.
Yeah, and the 3 of us were talking about this, and it's the easiest thing to do is have leadership vocalize and taking action throughout the organization. So there are different ways of, you can do, bottom up, you can do middle, but the fastest way for most organizations to really work on sustainability, all of the components of it, it makes it easier usually when the leaders are also very much engaged and purposeful around that. These days, there's a lot of focus on reporting and accounting, and we're going to talk a little bit about, talk about that. And one of the things that I think a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, including manufacturing, you either have supply chain from Europe or customers in Europe, and the connection with that is that Europe and California have rigorous expectations around accounting for greenhouse gas emissions and carbon emissions. And so the reporting opportunity or requirement in Europe and the reporting and accounting essential pieces are, can be connected if you have clients, customers in Europe or in California, and probably they're very large economies. So that has that is something that has changed recently. So I think both you, Shaye, and Robin have some perspectives around what you do for reporting and accounting, and is it private or is it public?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I would say is to look at the European definitions for who's in scope in terms of how you operate in Europe. If you have subsidiaries or offices, the threshold for California is really low. I mean, basically, if you sell any product in California, or if you have like one person who works for you, like a salesperson, even without an office, and they are in California, then that counts. And so looking at that to get an idea of when and if you're in scope to be legally required to report the way they want you to report, that's a first step. And then I would say it's really about setting up the data gathering, right? So in these two cases, one of the first and foremost things, and for California specifically, is your scope 1 and scope 2 carbon emissions. And then where scope 3 is included in Europe, even if you don't meet the European thresholds, you're going to be in their supply chain. So they're going to be asking you for those. Same thing could be with US publicly traded companies, that you're in their supply chain, and the SEC is requiring them, because they're publicly traded, even if it doesn't require it of you, you're in their supply chain, so they'll ask you. So definitely look up at all of those things, and I would say start gathering your carbon emissions data first, and looking at the CDP before that could just scare you too much. It's really intense. It has a lot of things on it beyond that. So just start with that. And again, it's pretty easy to justify looking at your power bills and understanding where your electricity use is and what your demand charges are. That's going to be good for your business. And so it's not a tough case to make internally to look at that. And just by looking at it, you're going to think of ways to improve.
So we do a lot of internal tracking here, certainly of our energy usage and our waste generation, and trying to understand where the energy is used, how much is being used, where is waste generation being generated, how much. And so we try and use that a lot for our own internal purposes of, where should we be focusing our efforts to try and decrease. We do have some customers that to meet both for their own just sustainability initiatives as well as legal requirements, like Robin was referring to, that are asking us for information primarily related to climate emissions. In some cases, asking just more broadly about environmental management practices and things that we use. So we do report to some platforms like CDP, a couple of others that are perhaps not as familiar to people on this call, that are more related to footwear and apparel, which is one of the industries we sell into. So we report to the HIG index, and we our Blue Sign system partner, and all of those require providing significant amounts of information to those platforms. That information is often maybe shared with the customers that are requesting that we report to those platforms, but then it's not shared publicly beyond that, at least, not maybe in an aggregated sense or something like that. But I think Robin's point is exactly true. That's how you figure out where you're generating the most waste or using the most electricity or natural gas. And those are places where you're spending a lot of money. And anytime you can save on any of those things, it's going to help the bottom line. And the waste piece of it is not just the cost to dispose of the waste. It's like Robin's talking about, the time that is spent, and the raw materials. Maybe if it's like a quality problem that you identify, you're wasting money on raw materials that are then just getting thrown away as well. So it does, many of these types of initiatives will go straight to the bottom line in terms of paying you back for the time and effort you put in.
Thank you for sharing these things. I did put in the third image, which is really the B Corp assessment, and that is a really good profile of and portfolio of what can be done for all of the components of sustainability. But what is a little bit closer to our companies in New Hampshire is the New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility. I find that the survey, the Measure What Matters survey, is very accessible, and really, it's not a reporting opportunity for, just working on your own business. And so you can look at the Measure What Matters survey anytime, and it gives you a sense of what possibilities there are in all of these different buckets, the workers and environment, governance, diversity and inclusion, community and climate. It's, for smaller businesses, medium businesses who don't have people who have experts like Shaye and Robin in their companies. This is a resource that can be very useful to say, oh, we're really focused on this, but we've never thought about something else. So, on New Hampshire Businesses for Social Responsibility website, you can just look at the survey. And I think it's a nice start to see what types of things you want to do and move that. I mean, both of your companies, Worthen Industries and Hypertherm Associates, have been working within this survey. So I think both of you are probably feel, it's not as rigorous with, from the Carbon Disclosure Project and the B impact assessments and GRI, all these different things, but it's a good way to start. And I'm wondering if, either Shaye or Robin, are there other things about sustainability that you'd like to talk about before we ask questions, if there are any questions in the chat?
I think I'd just like to emphasize what you mentioned before, the importance of the commitment and engagement of the leadership at the top. I have really no authority over anybody. So having the president and CEO talking about how important this is, and he and I have monthly meetings with each plant and each business unit every month where they provide updates on where they are in their projects, and knowing that it's coming, from the top, just it is essential in terms of keeping things moving. Everybody thinks, or most people, I think, would agree that sustainability is important, but it's very easy when you've got all sorts of other things that you're trying to deal with and getting product out the door and things like that, it's not going to necessarily always rise to the top. But I think knowing that the president and CEO feels that it's important enough to meet with about it monthly, it just sort of, it keeps us moving forward. And I think that it's essential to have that support.
Yeah, I can comment on that as well. I mean, the true gold standard, which I don't think many companies are at yet, but is that salary, compensation, bonuses, all of those sorts of things are tied to the achievement of sustainability goals, right? And the gold standard is that even applies. It applies to the board, it applies to the C-suite, it applies to mid-level leadership, right? That's how you really motivate people. But given that most people aren't there, I think that Shaye is exactly right. It's about internal reporting more so than all this external reporting. Like, no one in your organization is going to want to look at the CDP disclosure. You can spend months on it and no one is going to want to look at it internally because it's too much. It's too overwhelming. But looking how you report internally that gets attention and shows that those internal metrics and initiatives and milestones that are being achieved are being reported up to your own leader and eventually maybe to the top leadership and the board is hugely important. And my recommendation on that specifically would be to piggyback on things that are already being reported and processes that are already happening. So for us, we have an ops leader meeting every Monday morning. The sustainability initiative has piggybacked on that. And instead of just saying, missed shipments and safety incidents and, all of these other things, we're adding on to that sustainability metrics. Similarly, we have an operations steering team that's once a month. We are reporting in with them as well, getting on their agenda. So any agenda that exists that gets attention, piggybacking on that is easier than creating a whole separate meeting and a whole separate process and a whole separate tracking spreadsheet. Just piggyback on what's already there.
That's great. Thanks for that addition from both of you. I haven't had a checked in the chat. I don't know that anything's in there, but if someone who is interested in asking a question, open up. That would be great.
If we're waiting for questions, I'll just, another comment that I would make is I think that sometimes it's you're not measuring, sometimes it's surprising when you do start to measure how much of an impact something has.
Mm.
And look, in terms of sort of similar to Robin's comment about the boxes, we have done a couple of waste reduction projects as well. For example, we had one product that for extrusion, we would extrude it onto this blue poly liner. And then before it goes out, it goes onto the liner and it cures and everything. And then before you send it out to the customer, you strip off the blue poly liner and you throw it away. So what we had been doing was we were, at least recently, we started sending it to Trex. And so it's at least getting recycled. But we did a lot of work. That business unit did a lot of work and figured out how to make the product without using the blue poly liner at all. And that means that we'll have 40 tons less waste each year, and it will save us over $200,000 for a piece of blue poly liner that we were just using in the facility and then throwing away. And I think a lot of times that math isn't done ahead of time. You don't really realize how much you can save from these individual projects. And of course, it's going to vary. We don't have tons of projects like that around, but they are there. So measuring and starting to think about things that way can be very beneficial from an economic standpoint.
Perfect. So I hope that that we, those of you who are we're coming in today, and we will be able to have a recording at some time. But I really appreciate both the New Hampshire Manufacturing Extension Partnership as well as my two compadres bringing their expertise. That's really
We
been.
do have a question if you
Yeah, I was
want
going to say, Sue, there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
From Mike
Can you dive into some measurements and best ways to report or present them?
I can answer that a little bit and then turn it over to Shaye. Especially in the beginning, if you haven't done other things yet, it is great to convert anything you can into dollars, because who knows what a metric ton of carbon is, right? Nobody. You can't see it. So if you can take your energy efficiency projects and turn them into dollars, that's great. And of course, those, might be for internal only, but that's going to motivate people. When you need to make something, kind of not divulge revenue or other information that's private publicly, you can turn things into percentages. But first of all, absolute energy reductions are kind of what's required going forward, but then you also can have efficiency. So then you're choosing a denominator like revenue or units per unit, something like that, that shows that you're getting more efficient, even if as a company you're growing, and therefore maybe your absolute energy use is going up. So that and dollars and put it on a graph so you can see it. And then touch on it regularly so that when you make progress, you can see it on the graph, and that is self-motivating.
Yeah, I agree. So our three goals, our sustainability goals, one is related to our scope 1 and 2 emissions. And so we want absolute carbon emissions to be going down. But we also have the energy efficiency goal, like Robin was talking about, and that's based on how much production. So we want to show that per unit produced, we're using less energy. And then same thing for waste. We have a normalized waste goal. So per unit that we're producing, we want to see that the amount of waste is going down. And we have those three numbers, and we are tracking it over time on a graph. And we do it as a company as a whole. We do it by plant so that we can really see where the performance issues lie, where we might be able to make improvements.
Yeah, if you can get down to team-based metrics, you also tap into that kind of positive peer pressure where one team is getting more efficient and then the other team is wondering, oh, well, they did that. Now, how can I do it? Or how can I do better?
One thing that we are struggling with ourselves is our waste goal. And part of it is, we figured out where, okay, we know how much goes to the different recycling streams, but we still have a whole bunch that's going into a compactor. And we don't have a good handle on where all of that is coming from within our plants. And so we're actually in the process right now of looking at a software package that will help us to track that. And we're hoping that we'll be able to track it by machine or by product as it goes through the whole manufacturing process. And that it will really give us a much better understanding of where it's coming from. Because as I said, internally, I think that it's without actual data, it's really hard to know where it's coming from and really how much you're generating. I think that it can be surprising sometimes. It's more than you think.
Yeah, it's not transparent. Yeah, thank you so much. Eric, I think we probably need to move along.
Okay.
Really, I don't see another question, but really thank everyone who's been here on the call today, and I really appreciate that. I am a consultant. If you are interested in having an assessment around your sustainability practices, strategies, communication, you have a QR code there, and you can just call me for advice as well. So thank you so much for Robin and Shaye, everyone here, and Eric. I think you have a completion paragraph or so.
Yes, that's right, Sue. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Sue, Shaye, and Robin. It was great. Thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar, Embedding Sustainability in All Aspects of Your Business. I'm sure you learned important information for helping your organization. Sue's information's on the screen. So like she said, if you'd like to work with her, please reach out to Sue directly there with her email address. And or you can email me and I can get you in touch with Sue. My email is ericb@nhmep.org. It's the same email address that you've seen in all those reminders I've sent you. So, you can reach out to me too, and I can hook you up with Sue. And lastly, to help improve our webinars, there was a link in that those reminders for a survey. So please, or an evaluation, please complete that via the link. And from all of us at NH-MEP and Sustainable Futures Consulting, thank you for attending today's webinar and have a great day. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.